$1.2 billion of goods cross the U.S. and Canada border every day. Due to the high frequency of traffic, another bridge was proposed between Michigan and Canada. In a majority vote, the Michigan House approved the project. The bridge would connect I-75 to Ontario's Highway 401. The proposed bridge would cost $5.3 billion, with Canada contributing $550 million. Michigan plans to cover the cost through private investment, and the U.S. government has not committed to funding aid as of yet.
Good afternoon, I'm Mark, and I'll be talking about the private investment option. The cost of the bridge is $5.3 billion, and if total private investment is used with no federal or state funding, then toll roads will be implemented where investors would make back the investment plus interest for the long run. This proposal mirrors the Ambassador Bridge, which also connects Canada to Michigan. The toll here is $4 for cars and $8 for cars with trailers. The biggest pro to private investment is that the deficit won't rise in Michigan or the federal deficit. And there's no tax increase, so taxpayers wouldn't bear an extra cost. And the largest con is coming up with this amount of money. It seems difficult for private investors to come up with that much money by themselves.
I'm Justin, and the next topic we're going to talk about is the state funding option. Currently, Michigan's running a $1.6 billion budget deficit, and the Ambassador Bridge is the most frequently used border crossing between the U.S. and Canada for both commercial and recreational purposes. So we're going to look at some of the pros and cons of the state funding option. The first pro is that it's a more reliable source of funding because the state government can just issue a tax on the residents, and this is much more efficient than waiting on private investors to come up with over $4 billion. Another pro is that the toll that will be collected can be used to reduce the budget deficit that Michigan's currently running. Some of the cons are that it will lead to a tax increase on Michigan residents, which is already a struggling economic area. And because Michigan is the only one paying for the bridge through the tax, the other states get off the hook for having to pay, creating a free rider problem.
Hi, I'm Madison, and as Justin just got done telling you, the bridge will be located in Michigan. However, many other states will benefit from it, as $1.2 billion worth of goods crosses the Canada-Michigan border each year. So let's look at the federal funding option. Some of the pros is that because it's the federal government, they're able to raise large sums of capital while minimally increasing taxes. On the con side, the government has come out to say that they're going to decrease spending. However, $4.5 billion will be the cost of this bridge.
Do you agree with any particular funding mechanism?
Well, I mean, my bias would be if it's something that's really going to generate value and it's going to be worth investing money in. Just like the current bridge is a private bridge. Mm-hmm. That my first instinct would be to say, instead of like necessarily risking a lot of taxpayer money on it, is if it's a worthwhile investment, I would expect that a private company would like to step up to the plate and do it. And since they don't necessarily want to step up to the plate and do it, it's not obvious whether or not it actually would meet that cost-benefit calculus to just say, well, let's just pour public money into it.
And would you, if you were just looking at between federal and state, would you say federal should fund it versus state?
No, I would say the state should fund it because if you think about who's going to accrue the benefits of the bridge, assuming there are any, it's going to be people who live in Michigan. So normally you want people that benefit from a project to mostly pay for it, because do you want to tax people in Florida to cover something that's going to benefit people in Michigan? So I would have a preference for a more localized, or at least a statewide tax for a specific project that's really going to only benefit people in Michigan, than a broader tax that's basically just going to subsidize, use money from some parts of the economy, some regions of the economy, to subsidize other regions of the economy. Especially when some of what I've read is that really it only starts to break even like 30 to 40 years from now. Mm-hmm. And so who the heck knows, what's going to happen 30 to 40 years from now.
Right.
So it's probably a lot of risk. Right now, the federal government's subsidizing, so the risk is being borne by everybody. Okay, and the benefits, if there are any, is going to be localized. So if people are going to mostly have the benefits, normally in terms of taxation, we want to sort of link the beneficiaries of projects to those who are actually paying for it. Okay, so I would tend to be against federalizing something that's really like a local matter.
Through our research and discussion, we decided that private funding is the best option.
So now we're going to look at some of the basic information about the bridge. The total cost is going to be $5.3 billion, 4.8 of which the United States needs to come up with. Our estimated income from toll every year would be $14.6 million.
As you can see, there's a common benefit between each of the three policies, and that is the hours saved per vehicle a year, which is 30.42. What makes private funding unique is that there is no taxpayer money used.
Unlike state and federal funding, where if we use the 30 years estimated to pay off the total for the bridge, each Michigan taxpayer would have to pay about $1,066 over the 30-year period, which comes out to $35.50 every year. If it was a federal tax over the same amount of time, you're looking at about $34.20 for every taxpayer over that 30-year period, which comes out to about $1.14 every year.
But this does not mean that private funding does not have its faults. Coming up with $4.8 billion up front is not an easy task for private companies. And along with maintenance and repair, it's not going to be an easy task coming up with this money. But overall, through our research and discussion, we decided that private funding is the best option.